So hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. And I'm going to start by acknowledging that Green College is located on the traditional and unceded territories of the Úxwumixw-speaking Musqueam people. And I'm very grateful to be a guest here at Green College and on this land. And one reason I themed this lecture series around the ocean was because I wanted to explore how humans connect creatively and artistically with nature. But of course, here in what is now called Vancouver, the Coast Salish peoples have been living with nature since time immemorial. And along with the land acknowledgement, I wanted to give sort of a sea acknowledgement as well. Which is that the indigenous people here are the first keepers of the Pacific, of the water, the marine life, and also of the stories and the art they've created and share. So I hope to be a good guest and also a good student of these stories. And so this evening's event is titled On the Salish Sea, and my guest is playwright Justin Neal. And we're going to have a discussion this evening, a conversation, and there'll also be time for a Q&A at the end. So, more about Justin. From the late 90s to the 2000s, Justin Neal juggled day jobs in San Francisco and New York with amateur theater at night. In 2013, he took a leap of faith to focus on dramatic writing full-time, relocating to his family's Squamish Nation lands to pursue a joint MFA in creative writing and theater at UBC. His screenplays have placed him in dozens of competitions, programs, and residencies across North America. His feature screenplay, The Skins Game, was awarded production funding by Telefilm and will commence filming in 2026. As playwright and founder of Holy Crow Arts, he has successfully premiered new plays, So Damn Proud in 2021 and Keepers of the Salish Sea 2024. Justin is an alumnus of Canadian Film Centre's Film Program Writers Lab and a 2024-2025 Shadbolt Fellow in the Humanities at SFU. So Justin and I were in the same cohort in the MFA Creative Writing Program here at UBC. We took playwriting together. We had productions together in Brave New Playwrights. But I sort of moved away from playwriting while Justin went on to run Brave New Playwrights, as well as writing plays and screenplays. And Keepers of the Salish Sea, which is Justin's most recent play, was staged last year here in Vancouver, and I was very sorry to miss it. Actually, for this event, I got to watch a recording of it, so I had my fun again by getting to see it in another way. And Keepers of the Salish Sea is a play with a divided protagonist in a divided world. The play begins with Samuel, who's the main character, living in New York, abusing drugs and alcohol before he finds sobriety. But his life remains unfulfilled until he's called to Vancouver, where he reconnects with family teaching and in particular, Squamish canoeing traditions. So it's a play about identity, about the actions we take. It's about age-old traditions, but it doesn't antiquate them. It places them really firmly in the present and in the future. And yesterday, Wayne Valliere, I don't know the French pronunciation, I didn't try. He's an Anishinaabe culture bearer and canoe maker. He was here at Green College yesterday, and he spoke about not teaching culture, but teaching culturally. And that really resonated with me because I think art can really do this so wonderfully, like using story and creativity to allow us to experience culture in these new ways. And this series that I've curated, Where the Waves Take Us, it's about how we connect the sea to art. And Justin has done this really wonderfully through Keepers on the Salish Sea. It shows connections between people, communities, indigenous traditions, and the ocean that we have to respect and preserve. So please join me in welcoming Justin Neal.
Hi, yep. Sďwx, Justin Neal, Queens na, Smalaithkin, Queens na namin, Kana Clut, Queens na Lenchasha, Tanat Chan Tla, Bainbridge, Sgsmåx, on Wanat, 10 Squallowin. So I just introduced myself. I do not have a Smalaith. Obviously, my name is Justin Neal. Smalaithkin is my, it's my nickname. So. Quintananamen means also what I'm called. I have not been given a traditional name. It may happen one day. It's not something that I'm going to ask for. If it makes sense for me to receive one, then I'll gratefully receive one. I introduced my mom. I'm the son of Kanaklut, Colleen Amawela. We grew up on Bainbridge Island, Washington. So I said we're Bainbridge Sgsmåx is Sgsmåx is the word for island. So we grew up there. And the final thing I said was, and I'm proud of who I am. My granny, Dorothy Nahaney Amawela, moved down to Bainbridge Island in 1942. She grew up on the Aslahan Reserve in North Van and went down just with her great-grandmother, who didn't speak a lot of English, and so she met my granny, Dorothy, met my grandfather, Thomas Amawela, on Bainbridge Island, Washington, and they started a family. They had a farm, and we'll talk about more about that later, I think. But yeah, so that's me. I'm really honored to be asked to talk about my play, and just to reconnect with Clara. Amazing person. I'm such a big fan. So it's really nice to be here. Thank you.
Mutual fans. Thank you for the introduction. And as you said, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I just wanted to start off by, casting my mind back. So we did Brave New Playwrights together. We both had, 20-minute play each. And I remember your short play, it was a dark humor, a dark comedy, and it centered around two drinking buddies. Was it set in New York, or was it just set in a? Yeah. It was 20 minutes. We didn't have much time for background. It
was set in every bar that I lived in from 1998 to 2000 until I got sober in 2006. So I was basically a fixture in different bars in San Francisco and New York, and I had an Irish drinking buddy in San Francisco, but he kind of, so it took place, it wasn't a realism, it was more of not a fever dream, but yeah, it was abstract.
I feel like it was Beckettian in a way. Yeah. Well,
I'll
guess,
take that.
Yeah, I'll take it.
I'll take it.
Do you feel like your writing since then has changed in focus or style? Like, how do you feel like your playwriting has changed since then, or has it changed?
Yeah, so I wrote, so as I've kind of already sort of foregrounded, I had a lot of difficulty writing when I was a drunk. I just couldn't really stick with it. So I already foregrounded that I got sober. But when I used to write, I wouldn't really be able to do it without some kind of substance. And so when I got sober, it took me a long time to face the fear of maybe I should try to be maybe I can do this. And so, and on my journey back to playwriting, it was very realism was, I started taking a class in New York at I always forget the name of the school, which is terrible. It's a great school. And I would do that at night, and we would have these exercises where it's first week was you have two people on stage, one person needs something from the other person and has to get it without asking. And so we would be giving these exercises, and I just noticed that I would just show up every week and I just loved writing it, and that's when I really found my practice. But so that realism sort of is kind of what got me back into writing. So writing that show, which was What's New, was really it was my chance to kind of just go back into sort of this experimental, abstract sort of fantasy world. And but I think from that orientation of the realism when I came back to writing, and then also while here, writing for screen, it just really got me into the craft of writing a story. So I'm kind of, I'm somewhere in between. I think I would like to go back to more experimental sort of form, but for the past 10 years, I've been really sort of focused on, I wouldn't say conventional, but at least like riffing on sort of the narrative structure, riffing on conventional narrative structure, I think. And I want to continue sort of a path into experimentalism with the theater. So that answer it, kind of? Yeah.
Well, actually, I felt that in Keepers of the Salish Sea, the first half did have sort of like a heightened sense. Like it was quite different in tone. I wouldn't have called that realism in the same way. The second half seemed to connect with that a lot more. So I feel like you are still doing that.
Yeah, I mean, this was the first work since, I returned to writing or after grad school. I really did want to, I wanted to encapsulate the insanity of bottoming out and alcohol in your addictions or one's addictions, and the kind of crazy, just like that world that was my everyday, and it was really insane. And so as this character Samuel gets sober and he's sort of forced to deal with it in his work environment, or get fired, like he starts going to meetings, and so the play starts to ground itself in sort of realism because that Samuel's real life is it's so bananas, it's so like half of the time he's just wasted. So
yeah, we'll show the trailer maybe in a minute, which I think will demonstrate that really well. Even it's just a 3-minute trailer, but I think we can really see the tonal shifts in that. But before we do that, I just want to go back a little bit and maybe talk about your own story a little bit more, which you touched on. I guess something I've always been really interested in life or in my writing, as well as like the merging of people and cultures. And I think your family has quite I say unique history. Obviously, there is a community, right, like yours, but I mean, I don't think it's that well known, but I thought it reflects a lot of history in terms of ancestral lands, immigration, displacement. Would you like to tell us more about it?
Sure. My literal family history is that, yeah.
Yeah. If you want to.
No, I'm happy to talk about it. In fact, that's the next. I said let's talk about it later because it's a work that I'm now hoping to begin on, which is something. It was the work that I started my grad school that I wanted to talk 12 years ago now.
Yeah, it's a while ago.
So it's basically. My grandfather, Thomas Amayuela, was moved to Bainbridge in the late 30s. And so at the time on Bainbridge Island, so Bainbridge Island is this sort of, it's nowadays kind of a bedroom community from Seattle. It's very affluent. It's one of the places where the ferries go. From downtown Seattle, you get on a ferry to Bainbridge or Bremerton. And Bainbridge is really it's a half an hour ride, and then you get off, and this beautiful Winslow town is kind of like just teeming with tourists. It's crazy. Like it never was like that when we were growing up, and when my mom was growing up, in the early 40s, it was for the most part an agrarian island. So the majority of farms were owned by Japanese landowners, and and farmers, and so they would hire Filipino men to help manage their farms. And at the time, a lot of First Nations women from, well, I always say from Canada. I'm not quite sure. It may have been from other tribes in the U.S., but I know our story, which was that a number of First Nations women from Coast Salish territories would go down, work on the fields in the summer, and then come back once the season was done. But my granny decided that once she got off the, she had a very, very, very difficult childhood on Eslahan. She was, and she, her mother, so my great-grandmother, was basically incapacitated, and I don't know what her medical condition was. My granny would call it something that was not at all acceptable nowadays to say, but like she would, I grew up understanding that my great-grandmother was an invalid, which, you know, that's not a nice thing to say. But my granny had to chew her mother's food every meal, had to bathe her, had to take care of her 24/7 from when she was 13 until she was 24. The reason why she got out of residential school, she only had to go to day school on the reserve because of her full-time caring for her mom. So by the time my granny was 24, she was like, I have to go do something with my life. I think that she was ready. She was ready to begin her life. And so she went down to Bainbridge and she met Thomas, my grandfather, like immediately fell in love and was like, I'm gonna marry that man. That was her focus. And it took a little time, but they had they got married, they fell in love, had 6 kids, 5 kids. 5 kids, and one of them was my mom, Colleen. So, but yeah, so Filipino, First Nations, there's about 36 of our families of this Filipino, mixed Filipino First Nations families. They would call them, I'm sorry, I always do this. They call themselves, the term was coined Indopino in the 70s, and so it stuck. So the Indopino community of Bainbridge Island my mom is a part of that. And so it just feels like such a 70s word. But it's, so we are part of the Indopino community. And it's just this incredible history, especially when you're looking at times when there was internment during World War II, and our families would take care of these, farms while the Japanese were, interned that's not the right.
I think you say incarcerated.
Incarcerated is a better term for it. So with that, and then I could go on all day about my family story, but we'll talk maybe more about that later, but I'm always fascinated with where they are in this world, and it just drives my my work, just like where I've come from, including my family.
Yeah, thank you. I know when you told me about that, it was something I hadn't heard before. But then, of course, I didn't grow up here, so I thought maybe everybody knows except me. But I don't know if you want to talk about it later, but there was a screening of a movie which you were involved in. Oh, no, you weren't involved in that? No. But you were...
Yeah.
Your mother was.
Yeah, so it's called Honor Thy Mother. Gina Corpus made this documentary talking about, and my mom was one of there was, I think, 8 or 12, one or the other, folks who are descendants. They made this documentary, it's a half an hour, called Honor Thy Mother. I'm happy to share it with anybody. This documentary is also kind of a research piece that I'm, utilizing for whatever this story is that I'm working on. It feels like an epic play. It feels like a television series. It's like really trying to tell that story in a way that, that does it justice, but also does the story justice, but I'm not sure how biographical it will be. And that's kind of what I'm working through right now. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. It's interesting. You're wondering kind of what form it might take, because I do have a question about this in relation to Keepers of the Salish Sea. But maybe we'll watch the trailer for it now. Okay.
Just before you do that, just a warning. There's a lot of swear words in this.
Oh yeah.
Just so it can be jarring if you're not used to it. Yeah, just cover your ears.
Cover your ears. And close your eyes, because I think there's subtitles as well.
We actually subtitled them too, so
we'll see how many swear words there are in 3 minutes. Okay.
Oh! That's a big wave!
Where'd it come from?
Keep paddling! The canoe has never capsized, he says. I doubt the canoe even likes me. Get out, you pretendian! What? Duh. Dude, I'm native. No, you're not. Wait, what? What do you mean, no, I'm not? Fuck you. Are you okay?
You're not supposed to ask.
I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay! Okay! Woo! Hi, dude! Hi! Oh, booze. Medication that keeps our man here from severe panic attacks and being overcome by soul-sucking dread. Come to Hi. My name is Samuel, and I'm an alcoholic.
Good job, buddy.
Oh, you're doing so good.
We knew you could do it.
We should have. You are going off the reservation on this one. Jesus Christ, will you shut the fuck up? It was almost like a spirit popped up and was just like, hello. I gotta do something else. I got a whole lot of cousins that I've never met before. I gotta peace out. Whew, nervous? I mean, I don't know. It's just family, right? Ever been in a canoe before? No, I haven't. Our ancestors called you here. You want to talk about this money? You guys are descended from people who have been on this land since the beginning of history. Family that is part of a long line of keepers of the Salish Sea.
That is going for a bit. We're going to move on. Great. So, yeah, I think something that is pretty clear there is this shift, right, from the first half to the second half. And there's a shift in place. First of all, it's in New York. And the second is it Vancouver? It's Vancouver specifically. Okay. And then there's a switch in tone. So I know you mentioned the idea of like surrealism, realism, experimental theater. But for Keepers of the Salish Sea, did you always know it was going to be a play? Was there a moment when you thought it was going to be in some other form? Was it always a play for you?
Yeah, that one was, it was always a play just because those works at the beginning of Act 1 were, I've written them I don't, it's really hard to remember. There are a lot of scenes that I wrote through the years trying to really tackle what that crazy time period was like, getting sober, bottoming out, like trying to have, like, for me, I was like trying to learn how to live. Like I didn't even know there was nothing I knew how to do without booze or weed or some kind of influence. Like I couldn't do this. I couldn't go to gallery show. There was nothing I could do. I needed some kind of a fix. And so I was trying to write these scenes and really kind of get at that struggle that I went through when I first got sober. I was like my first relationship, my first, just like, there's a scene in there where he meets his sober buddy. So and that one's kind of real. And so for the most part, it was, because it was, I can't really imagine writing biography for screen, because everything that I've written is just, there's like one moment or one thing that sort of is the kernel of that story, but then it's like, it's, my life is fine, it's as interesting as anybody else's, but it's not enough to like, I think I need something more to watch a movie, to watch a TV series. So, so I really have to create through my imagination a story. But theater is beautiful in that way because it can be kind of just how I don't know, it's not true to life. Even watching it on screen, it's so hard to watch theater on screen because it's 1,000 times larger than it is in life, and it's kind of painful. But anyway, yes, for this, I really just knew it was a theater piece. And like I said, I had these scenes that I was like, I don't know what to do with this story. They're kind of biographical. And the work kind of came to in 2023, when I decided to be a part of my cousin's canoe family for the annual journey, the tribal journey that happens every year. That year in 2003, Muckleshoot down in the Muckleshoot Nation down south of Seattle is where we were all paddling to. So, and I really, every year my cousins, so Sxucks Nahaney, Simplion Gonzalez, Alroy Baker, they've been a part of the Squamish Ocean Canoe family. Shucks has been there since the beginning. And the first tribal journey was revitalized in 1993. And so he's been a part of it ever since. And so for the past 10 years, I was just like, I want to come. And, it was really hard for me to, because it's a lot of work, it's a lot of time, and I wanted to do it right. I didn't want to just like show up. And so I got really involved with, readying the canoe. The canoe had a lot of work that we needed to do. It was a dugout canoe. There's that. So this is the photo of it. So this is Cahoth. This is the. I think you'll see another photo of it. It's 60-foot canoe. It's like a 1,500. Wait, what?
I'll just move forward to see if we can see do we have a full photo of it? Maybe not.
Oh,
I don't.
It's fine.
Sorry, but I think
it's all good.
We can see here.
Yeah,
there's
so
just maybe in scale we can see. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we basically had to strip it, for the most part, it was. It's like what I committed to do, and so it was a really good. It was. I went into it thinking, I'm going to learn all these teachings and all these stories and all this stuff, and it was very you need to grind the bottom of the canoe and with which is fiberglass, and just sand it. It took a month. It was really hard and gross, but I
Surely
love.
you learned patience or something.
Yeah, no, it was great. I was really, the whole process was amazing. So
can I ask a quick question? In the
Sure.
preparing of the canoe, how many people are there preparing it? Is it the people who are going to be rowing it? Is it a bigger community? How does that work? The preparation?
yeah, no, it's family. So if not everyone is family, but family can then become you have to put in the time, the hours. You have to show up when we do stuff. There's a lot of the Squamish Ocean Canoe families does a lot of welcomes and public ceremony for new structures, or they get invited to begin projects in a good way. We that photo that you see at the end in regalia. So I've been honored to be a part of those events. But yeah, well, kind of lost my train.
No, I think that brings us back to a good place, which is, I guess, you mentioned that you feel like you couldn't write biography for the screen because it seems like what you're saying is you felt like, or you feel like at least now, that there isn't an overarching narrative journey, maybe, but that's different for theater. And it's actually really interesting that you say you wrote scenes from the first act at different points, because I thought something the first act did very well was it was disjointed in this way that was showing there's no balance, right? Yeah. It was doing that in form, which I always really admire when something is communicating content through the form as well. And then in the second act, there's probably the scenes maybe there are 3 or 4 scenes, or it's a much smaller number, whereas in the first.
In the second act,
yeah. And it's much more fluid, much more they're longer.
They're naturalistic.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of yeah. Go ahead.
But then, obviously, the canoeing traditions that Samuel learns in the second act of the play, and then your own involvement with the canoe family, that is what provided, right, this narrative, right? It gave the structure. It gave, again, through action, the second, narrative propulsion, I guess. Yeah. So is that something that you just found after you took part in Canoe Journey? Did it just come together then?
Yeah. It did. I also, I think, and sometimes I forget, that's what I wanted to first talk about. I really wanted to talk about the LNG project and extraction projects that are, I'll just talk about the Squamish Nations and the wood fiber LNG plant, which is being built up in Squamish. Our community is very divided about it, but it's going ahead. They voted it in 6-7 years ago, 8 years ago. And I didn't want to take a position on it. My position is obviously I'm not for it. I'm not, but yeah, I'm very much, but I really wanted to get my personal feelings out of it and just give weight to this family that has to wrestle with this. And so this is all fiction. This is all out of my imagination, but just how the skipper and the and his niece are they're fighting over this issue, and economic opportunity for our nation versus, and all the jobs it'll give versus, following our teachings, protecting our earth, protecting the waters, as keepers of the sea, of the Salish Sea. So that issue is where I really wanted to just kind of unpack that political issue, and ultimately, there's no clean resolution in this play. There's no attempt to I hope, I don't think it does. I mean, I think it doesn't moralize. It's what's the most important aspect of that, which is something that I got out of the time spent with the family, is family. And the resilience of our relatives and our ancestors to be able to practice our traditions today, despite how many hundreds of years of genocide, basically, and surviving that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think, no, you're right in that the play doesn't have a tidy resolution. And I think that was one of the most real elements of it, right? You can't try and fabricate some sort of resolution in a play where that would feel like magical realism to me, So I think that was rendered very well. And that within the family there's this tension and these opposing sides, but in the end they are family still, right? Like you said, the important thing is the family. And then, so the canoe journey was big for your life and then in the play, but something that I thought was really interesting was that the cast then also became, if not a part of it, then were brought into the family in this way, or in the journey in this way as well. So I was wondering if you wanted to talk about this, because in this photo here, this is not all the cast are in this photo, but many of them are, and there you are at the end there as well. We might have a few more photos. And I was just wondering about how you went about, I guess not so much the research, but this rehearsal that was more than just practicing the motions for the cast.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted a canoe on stage. I wanted for us to have this group in a canoe. I wanted to figure out how we were going to do that, and I wanted to keep just a very limited amount of traditional knowledge in the work. And there is the seafaring, canoe going aspect of it, which our knowledge keepers helped us do it in a good way, do it right, do it for the stage. And then there's a story that's told near the end, which is a traditional story, but it's also been, I sought out the permission of the family holder who, and just made sure that this kind of it was more of a what's that word when it's it's not a parable, but
allegory?
Maybe an allegory. But yeah, it was just made a little bit more generalized than the actual specific story that is not appropriate for this play, or it's not appropriate for telling that in this context, I didn't feel like. But yeah, so was really focusing on the canoe because I was not insanely is not the right word. I was intensely awkward. Being in the canoe, I was really bad at it. I'm too tall. I just was I'm not a very good paddler. I'm just and so I had to kind of deal with, just feeling like an 11-year-old, awkward person, in this 50-year-old body, just not feeling that I fit in. And I knew this was another big part of this work was, really talking about that sort of awkwardness of like, just putting yourself out there, out of your comfort zone to do something that I felt was really important. So.
And then, it's funny because I noticed in the play in the first act, there was many mentions of him being like, I'm a baby, I'm just a child. And that actually, even though he says that, it's in the second act where you can see that maybe self-consciousness when he's with his cousins, but then actually that falls away. So here's the canoe on stage as well. Can you talk about this amazing prop? It even seems a bit demeaning to call it a prop.
I know, right? But it is. Yeah, it's in 3 pieces. It's made to look like a traditional canoe, but it, on stage it really does read very well. But it took us a while to figure out how to build it in a way that was ideally our cousins. We would have done it, but we ran out of time, ran out of money to do that kind of the work that would take, and this just to like for it to be safe and to do all those things and to have it like move on stage in a way that really worked. So we Great Northern was the company. They do a lot of, they're like the main sort of theater construction set builders in town, and they're just amazing that they pulled it off. And they worked with our designs. All of it was like done, with in collaboration with the Canoe family, just making sure that everything was fine, like approved. We got the appropriate permissions, and then the artwork was created by Bracken Hanus Corlett. That's his original designs that I was just the name of our canoe. So Cahoth was our Squamish, our canoe family's canoe. This is Skszwx, and Skszwx is our word for eagle. It's like beautiful eagle, I believe. It's like it's a different word than eagle, but there's an adjective in it that I'm just forgetting right now. But yeah,
it looks extraordinary, and I think in the second half of the play, the backdrop does transform, and those columns turn around, and it's a very beautiful moment because it's very vivid. And before that, it's a kind of gray backdrop. Maybe we've got like a lot of this looks corporate.
It's a skyline, so it's supposed to be sort of a New York City sky. That's what it is.
And then we move into this with a lot more light and a lot more color. And I was wondering, what was the process of engaging with knowledge keepers like, in terms of, was there anything that changed in the play because of their involvement or what you learned from them?
Well, did anything change? I'm sure something did, but I think because it was such a collaborative process, it's really hard to like remember. I made sure to share the stage reading with them, and before it went public, before we got into the production phase, just to make sure that any kind of knowledge that I'm sharing in it is appropriate, and also just like, there were a couple things that were just, I think, taken out. I can't remember honestly, but if there was a question, that big part was the story that I was mentioning earlier, where we kind of crafted it in a way that was appropriate for public consumption, I guess is the word. But I know that there were things but I feel like they were done more collaboratively. If I had a question, I would talk to them about how this might be approached in the writing of it. But it was, again, that's another reason why I just made sure to just stick to the canoe, which I was a part of, and the paddling, and that and how that works, and the switches, and then just keep it simple.
I know that something that was, I guess, in the ethos of the play, and I would assume in lots of your work, is like how to recreate cultural practices in theatrical context responsibly, which I thought was like very important and also like a very interesting way of even just phrasing that. So do you feel like a big part of that is like engaging with, in some ways I would say like experts, but like we say, like knowledge keepers or people who are actively practicing these kinds of traditions? Like, was there anything in like the depiction of different things that you felt like, well, you know, it's the stage, it has to, you know, it'll work better like this on stage, right? Or that you felt like it almost the opposite, that it would lose context on stage? Like, how was that kind of balance? Because I guess I feel like, you know, if it's something for the screen, there's the ability to dwell on very small details, right? Which we don't have in the play. Like a play is bigger, right? It's a bigger scale. Or in a book, you can put a glossary at the back, right? Or you can add a paragraph where it's detailing things. But because a play is all voice and action, it can be more difficult to do, I guess. So I guess did that change anything in the process? Did that change anything in the staging or in the dialogue?
No, it didn't. I just had to make sure that everything was done with appropriate permissions. And like a big part is our song. So the song that was that we sing in the play was gifted to us by Chief Ian Campbell. Chief Ian Campbell wrote this song when he went on canoe journey that same year in 90. I believe it was in 93. I might be wrong. It might be 94, 95. But you know, that song, I guess one way to answer that is our family sings that song in a way that's like very clear that we're not musically trained. Is that, you know, like it's there's not like a West, like it's not see, we don't even call it performing. It's cultural sharing of our song. So like when SFU wants to like hire the canoe family to perform, that just doesn't, that's not an acceptable word, because we're just sharing our culture. The performers and the actors in the play, they're performers. And so they were practicing the song, and it sounded like I was like, what is that? It sounds like a Broadway song. It was so pitch perfect. They were so perfectly in unison. It was almost like, that just doesn't, I mean, it sounds beautiful, but that's not the song. You know what I mean? Like it's, so, but it works for the stage. And it also sounds like, it's also, it's a public performance of cultural sharing, but done in a way that's blessed is one word, or you know.
That's fascinating to think of. How do you not perform something with performers? Like, how do you present it almost, right? That must have been kind of a quandary.
No, I mean,
it was okay.
It was interesting, but I wasn't going to make them like not sound good, you know, like, but yeah, if you hear me sing, like I have a pretty like baritone voice, but you know, my breath is terrible. So some of these some of our songs go for a while, and I can't keep singing the note. I have to stop, catch my breath in the middle of it. And my cousins just go right through, and I'm like, how do you guys do that? Because they've been singing the song for decades. But anyway, yeah, no, there were. I just found that to be the most kind of interesting aspect of it, and it goes to like what is performance, and I'm also of the belief that theater has been practiced on these lands since time immemorial. It's just a different form. It's not Western theater, obviously, but it's storytelling. It is sharing, stories with the community, to teach lessons, and so I feel like we should connect, and that's what sort of the Holy Crow ethos is like connecting with, we're trained theater folks, but we're not separate from the traditions that have been the performance traditions on these lands since time immemorial. So how do you do that? But yeah, it's an interesting, I don't want to say challenge, but a mandate,
I mean, I think you did it.
Right on. Thank you.
I think that's a great note to end the conversation on.
Oh yeah.
And maybe I know time went.
I know.
Time flies by.
Forever.
Is this a good place to finish?
Yeah.
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 Great. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. That was wonderful. Thank you.